Welcome to the Cyber Tech Podcast, inside the minds of everyday IT and cyber pros, powered by AspireByte, hosted by Mike Fierros. Real life stories, real careers, real world experience. Each episode brings you honest conversations with people working across the tech field, from cybersecurity and information security to IT, sharing lessons learned, challenges faced, and what it truly takes to build and sustain a career in tech. Let's get into it.
Cyber Tech Podcast, inside the minds of everyday IT and cyber pros. Welcome to episode number 30. And if it's the first time you listen to the Cyber Tech Podcast, be sure to subscribe to the AspireByte YouTube channel, where we share full podcast episodes, clips, tech-focused content. While you're there, like and share the videos to help spread the word. You can also listen to every episode of the Cyber Tech Podcast on Spotify. If you've been enjoying the show, give us a 5-star rating, drop a quick comment, and share it with others. It helps us reach more people and keeps the mission going. Thank you for everyone who's already done that. Want to explore more? Visit the AspireByte Hub at aspirebyte.car.co. That's aspirebyte.carrd.co. It's your all-in-one starting point for free resources, podcast links, merch, and more. Speaking about merch, check out the AspireByte merch shop, aspirebyte.myspreadshop.com to wrap the mission wherever you go. Also, the new Marinate in the Craft line is on the merch shop with the computer technician, network engineer, and also now available is the Blue Team merchandise that's on there. Thank you for all those that have been purchasing and supporting the podcast and the AspireByte platform. Let's jump into episode number 30. For those that are in the field and those who want to get into this profession, we think about, after a few years, you think about possibly even leadership or manager, director role. The individual I'm going to bring on right now, his name is Dave Brown. He's a CISO and CIO of Endosight, founder of Lean CISO LLC, and author of the Lean CISO. How's it going, Dave?
It's going great. Mike, thanks for having me join, and thanks everybody for listening in. You're doing some good stuff. So I'm happy to join, and I'm excited to talk to you today.
I found your book, Dave, on Amazon because I purchased another type GRC type book, and I saw on there, and it said the Lean CISO, and I was like, the Lean CISO. I was like, it's interesting. I looked at the contents, I got it, and right away I started reading it and kind of implementing my current role, my full-time job, and awesome. I say that's something that's been leveling me. Your experience that you share in that book, it's been leveling me up a lot. Since then, I've been contacting you and got you on the podcast, and I just want to say I'm honored to have you on here. Thanks for being on here, for sure.
Thank you for picking up the book, by the way. I appreciate it. It's a book about strategy, quite frankly, and how do you move really fast. So happy to answer any particular questions. And honestly, the feedback I've gotten has been so tremendously humbling. I just wanted to help one person, and within 18 hours of releasing the book, I had somebody reach out to me on LinkedIn about it, and people
Nice.
continue to do it like yourself. So I really appreciate, the community backing me on sharing what I learned, kind of the hard way, actually. You said you wanted it raw. It was tough. So I didn't want other people to go through what I was going through.
And Dave, for those that might not be familiar with the Lean CISO or familiar with your career and background, kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into cybersecurity.
I love that question. I started out, you have an interesting background yourself. You did media, and then you went into law enforcement and tech. A little bit similar, actually. I was Coast Guard for many, many years. I actually retired out of the Coast Guard. I loved it.
Awesome.
And I was a 911 operator on the high seas. So I was in communication, similar to you. And so, I had the opportunity to save lives, which is something I wanted to do. And the Coast Guard is also a law enforcement agency, so that was a lot of fun. Then, I transitioned into sort of like security and network programmatic. I managed the Coast Guard's computer incident response team. That was my last job. And I really, when I was dealing with, an insider, like literally somebody inside the environment, I was pretty calm and cool under pressure. And then when I went to leave the Coast Guard, I had a friend of mine, Dave Brown. He said, "Hey, make sure you have professional certifications before you go." And I said, "Okay." So I got a few. And I found myself doing consulting for large companies where and I even went back to the government for a while. So I was at US CERT for almost 4 years. I was the deputy director of my last job there. But I loved startups. And the reason I loved them was because I felt more connected to the business, and I got to enable the business, which was so much fun, right? So the idea of the Lean CISO actually came up because I was talking to my wife one day, And I said, I've always been a Lean CISO. I've never had a big budget, and so that's how the name was born. It's a little bit cheesy, but and a little shout out to one of my cohorts at Endosite. He wrote the forward. He's a former CISO of CIA,
Awesome.
and our niece actually did the cover art. She did an incredible job. So, but it's quite a journey if anybody ever thinks about doing it. So,
I could come across, folks like yourself, Dave, that have kind of the similar. It might not be the same industry, but kind of similar type background, and you're leveraging the things you learn in the Coast Guard in your current roles and stuff like that. For those, Dave, that maybe they're in the Coast Guard themselves, or maybe in some kind of military or law enforcement capacity, and they're looking at IT, cybersecurity, infosec, and like, man, maybe I think I could probably do it. I'm not too sure. What's one thing you could tell them, like, that to leverage their skill set that they have in that job field and kind of move over to tech?
yeah. So, first thing I would say is thank you for your service. Would be the first thing.
For sure.
Look, I actually had somebody reach out to me. They're a government worker and they're thinking about eventually retiring and going and doing cyber. What I did was I actually met with them and then I said, "Hey, what's your journey?" And I just kind of gave them some ideas
Mm,
of things that they could potentially do. What you want to do, the transition from military to the private sector is very different.
mm,
It's a totally different focus. It's different the way you speak. It's a different driver, right? You have to support
mm,
and enable the business so that the business, like at least for us, we're a software as a service company, can make money, right? So that's very different than the mission in the Coast Guard where I was saving lives or I was applying cybersecurity skills to keep systems up and running, right? And
mm.
so that lives could be saved, which was kind of risky, right? Whenever you're
Yeah.
applying systems like that, definitely go to these conferences. And I say this even to people who want to come into the space. Join ISC2, join ISACA,
Mm,
ISSA. Go and meet the people who are working in the industry and get to know them. Listen to the way they talk because it's different than the way you talk. And you're going to have to take what you're listing in your military experience and then actually transition that to private sector, and it doesn't always port over very well.
mm,
And by the way, don't BS your way through it. Like be really honest about what you've done and how it relates to the particular job you're applying for because they'll know.
yeah.
so so the advice in short is just like listen, start to network with people before you even think about retiring.
Mm. Analogy I use, Dave, on marinating the craft and marinate. We marinate meats and stuff like carne asada,
Yeah.
and make good tacos and stuff. But like that's so true. Like no matter what industry you're coming from, whether you're a mechanic or in the military and law enforcement, getting into this field, you got to really kind of marinate, listen to this podcast like this, talk to folks out there locally. Maybe there's a community college you could go to talk to folks that are in cyber, or even maybe an organization that's willing to kind of, bring you on as an intern, but just kind of get exposure and get to know the industry, get to know the language. And you're right. Like I could relate to coming from law enforcement. Law enforcement, when it comes to like documentation, it's very black and white. And even my email etiquette was horrible. And I remember I had my first IT director telling me that, yeah, Mike, you're not a robot. You work in IT now, so make it a little bit colorful. We're here for the user. Don't use too technical. And but you start fleshing that stuff out as you start working in IT, cyber, infosec, and you start
Yeah.
realizing, okay, let me change a little bit and adapt to this new profession and learning the craft and how to take care of user. But I could definitely relate to that for sure.
Yeah, what's really interesting about doing any kind of security job in I think any industry, even the government has its own kind of nuancy thing, but you've got to make security relatable, right? So many
Mm,
people want to use super esoteric terms. We have so much esoteric terminology in the cybersecurity space. You've got to explain the risk to the business or the business leader in terms that they can understand,
mm,
for instance. And that does take time. That's why I think it's so important to actually network. You mentioned like going to colleges. I was an adjunct for 6 or 7 years, and it was incredible. I
mm,
would sit in front of, conferences with, high school kids looking to go into the local community and technical college, and they're thirsty to understand like what the industry looks like. So again, I think podcasts like this are super important because at least it lays out the thing. And I don't care if you're a student or somebody transitioning into a different industry. those groups I'm talking about are important to be involved in,
Yeah.
right? Because again, you're going to network with people and they may not necessarily hire you, but they may actually know people. They could help you on your journey. They could give you some tips. I'm going to say one thing real quick. I had somebody
For
last
sure.
year for fellow CISOs. When people reach out and ask you for, hey, can you give me a little bit of advice on what I think my career journey is going to be? Make some time, right?
Mm.
Like I had somebody reach out to me and I gave him my Calendly. I said, okay, here's my Calendly. Find some time and we'll talk. And he told me that a CISO actually said, sign up for my newsletter. And when I was listening to your last guest, she was saying, hey, look, we've got to pay this forward. And she's absolutely
Yeah.
right. I haven't gotten my jobs the easy way. My network's never really helped me out. I've done it the hard way the entire time. Right. But I'm always happy to talk to somebody. Obviously I can't overextend myself, but
Yeah.
give back. At least one person a quarter, one person a year, whatever your threshold is, that person's going to remember that for the rest of their career, and then they're going to pay it forward. I think there was a very important thing that you guys were talking about in the last podcast. So I just wanted to kind of re-emphasize that.
No, I totally agree with that. Like that's so important, and to realize that we're, eventually we're gonna retire and we're gonna move on and maybe do other endeavors and
Mhm.
whatnot. And so someone's struggling out there, and even if it's just like 5 or 10 minutes, send them a link, do a Zoom call for 3 minutes and just kind of lay out something. Hey, we'll meet again. But something that shows that, man, okay, this person really cares. They don't really know me, but they see I'm hungry. And so that's an opportunity. And then later on, when that individual gets in IT, cyber, infosec, wherever it may be, and they're at that CISO area or IT director or, CIO, whatever it may be, and someone else messages them on LinkedIn or something, hey, well, Dave, Mike helped me. Dave did that for me. So let me reach out to this person right here. And that's, I just like Dave, I come to reiterate, guys, for those of you in the professions, make sure, we don't have time sometimes. But it's good, if someone gives a quick message, hey, what book do you recommend? You know,
Yeah.
kind of send that, pay that forward. But yeah, definitely super important for sure. Dave, if you were 18 years old today and wanted to become a CISO one day, what path would you take?
It's funny. I don't think that there's anything I've done in my life I want to go and do differently. Like, I loved being in the Coast Guard. It was amazing, and I got a ton of skills. I was at the Coast Guard's Hub of Technology for a third of my career,
Nice.
and I got to do big programs and, I actually took a program from $0 to actually having a recurring budget, which was
Awesome.
unbelievably difficult, but it was a lot of fun. I don't think there's anything I'd change. I think the
Mm,
only thing I would do, like, retiring from the military without a degree was probably not the smartest thing I did.
mm,
Right, when you talk about, like, the school of hard knocks, if you're gonna transition, have a degree, right?
mm,
You need to, but what I learned from it was going into business out of the military, I went for a business degree and it was probably better that I held off because then I knew, hey, I need to understand how to communicate in the terms that they're gonna understand a little bit better, right? So, yeah, I don't think I would change anything. I mean,
mm,
my journey to being a CISO startup, I'm a 3X CISO. I love it. 69% of CISOs are looking to leave their job this year. I could
mm,
not imagine doing that. I actually love where I'm at. I love the executive team I get to work with, the team I do. I love giving back. The program I've built has just been bonkers fun to do with some of the
mm.
most energetic and amazing people. So, yeah, I don't think I'd change a single thing except for
That's
have a degree
awesome.
when I retired. That was the
Yeah,
only
no,
thing I'd change.
I hear you on that. I hear you. No, and then that kind of rolls into our next question. For those that whether it could be career changers or maybe those in the field already want to level up. You mentioned like IC Square, ISACA. Other than a degree, what kind of certification if they want to go into more maybe GRC compliance type role or maybe area in infosec? What kind of certifications do you recommend?
I think that they're good for that. If you're doing auditing, then obviously an audit focused one's important. If you're just starting out, just go for a Security Plus. I've had
Mm.
conversations with people that are interested in getting in the security space, and they'll go and get 5 or 6 or 7 certifications. Hey, I'm a certified ethical hacker, but you have no practical experience. I'm going to take practical experience over certifications any day. But in
Mm.
order for your resume to hit my desk, virtual desk, you have at least got to have some certification. So if you're going to go and be at my level, CISSP, CISM are typically what you would
Mm.
see. I also have the qualified technology expert, which is through Digital Directors Network. I'm going to give them a shout out. And they
Nice.
focus on board ready CISO CIO types, right? So there are frameworks that you can follow. Like NIST has a framework specifically for certain levels. It's a good one to go
Mm.
and look at. But if you're an auditor, CISA, if you're going to be more in a technical role, maybe, SSCP or something like that, right? I mean, it just depends on the particular role. But at the CISO level, I've seen, some CISOs say, I'm not even going to have professional certifications. I do the job. I got the experience. I don't really need to do it. I
Mm.
hang on to them. I like the organizations. I want to support them.
Specifically in cyber infosec, it could be kind of a huge, like, hey, do I go security plus? Do I get IC square? Where do I go? And I think that's really good advice, Dave, especially those in the field already that want to level up and kind of, steer them in the right direction and whatnot.
Yeah, there's AI certs that are coming out now. So, like,
Oh, that's
obviously,
true.
if you're going to be going into AI, that's something you can do. Like, you could, but if you have the
Yeah.
practical experience, I will tell you though, I've hired a lot of people, and there have been instances where I've taken and had a focus on degree. I had a focus on certifications, and I actually at one time said, okay, if you have a high school diploma and 10 years experience in this, I'll consider you. And I found the most amazing principal security engineer,
Mm.
right? I did encourage him to then go and work on a degree, and he did. And then he went to AWS, made lots of money. But anyway,
Mhm.
but the
Nice.
point is it gets you into at least the pile to be viewed. So
Mm. True.
it's an individual choice, even like going to college or not going to college. It's an individual choice.
Should cybersecurity programs teach more business and communication skills?
Yes. And I'll tell you, one of the things, like if you're thinking about going into the cybersecurity field, now you touch on both IT and that. Don't be afraid of those IT help desk jobs,
True.
those entry level IT, because you learn the systems. You're going to learn the
Mm.
cloud based SaaS. You're going to learn, Google Cloud or AWS or some of those stuff, even on a light level, right? Because you may stand up an S3 bucket or something like that for
Mm.
a project. So I would definitely say that what you get if you go on the audit side, and you also should consider the audit side, is you get a lot more focus on the business, right? Because you're going to have to interact with HR. You're going to have to learn that process. Yeah, I mean, so I think what helps cyber people again is if they have that soft skill where they can explain the risk. The FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, is never going to help you. And by the way, I made that mistake. I mentioned no FUD in the book, right? Because I did
Mm.
that. Well, if I don't get this person, we're going to get compromised. It completely shut off the ears of my boss. He didn't want to hear it because he was like, okay, but that's
Mm.
not really it. So I had to go and look back at it from a different perspective. But to your
Mm.
question, yeah, the communication is really, really important, because even if you're a SOC analyst, right, which is a great also entry, and I have, by the way, any SOC analyst people, my heart goes out to you guys. It's one of the toughest
Yeah.
jobs, like I said, law enforcement. It's a really
True.
tough job, but you've got to be able to communicate what you're seeing in a way
Mm.
where people can understand it. Like, even if you're, maybe a few years into there, you may be called into a meeting with the CISO to explain something. So, yeah, I think you're
True.
spot on. I think the business acumen and understanding is super important. And so I'm going to give you just a real quick
For
example.
sure.
I have a coworker who actually was an unpaid intern in my last
Mm.
company, and he has done so well. He just won a rising star award last year for cybersecurity,
Oh,
right?
that's awesome.
But like, he understood the importance of coming in and doing the hard stuff, right? And
Mm.
and so what I will tell you when you come into cyber is you have to do the hard stuff, like whether
Yeah.
it's IT, whether it's audit, whether it's traveling as a consultant for like a big four or something, and you'll learn a lot from those interactions, and it'll help you as you're trying to communicate and articulate, particularly as you go up the career path.
That's so true. That's it, and that's a good reminder for me. Looking at my past and the grind, if you will, right? I mentioned the podcast a bunch of times in different episodes, loving the grind, take the good, take the bad, take the criticism, but
Yeah.
you take it all in and you flesh it out and you get better and you progress and you progress. I had my current boss tell me, because I could be kind of a perfectionist myself, and he always tells me, Mike, shout out to Brad, Mike, progress, not perfection. Remember, progress. And especially
Yeah.
coming from more of a IT background, I like to cross my T's and line my dots and all that before I even do anything. And I want to make sure everything looks good. And having someone like yourself or like my boss Brad to be like, hey, stay the course, do this and it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned like the GRC piece. Before I get to that, actually, I do want to touch on it a little bit, but
For sure.
this is what I tell the leaders in my organization. It's like, when I was building the strategy, and you've already seen that whole process because you've been reading about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I had the IT side this time, which was very different, and there wasn't really a lot of like reactive stuff because we had built the program to what we call compliance high standard, which is,
Mm,
we're talking FedRAMP high, we're talking ISO standards, right? All that kind of stuff. And having the ability to do that with the executive team has been amazing. And I really am gracious for their support. But what I tell
mm,
my team and what I put in the strategy was you implement it, you measure it, and you iterate on it. That's the
mm.
strategy. It's not like this, and it becomes this evolving wheel.
True.
And it's hard for perfectionists to be in
Yeah.
cybersecurity because they want to get it right. And here's my advice to you: just implement something and then look at it again. And do I need to add to it? I'm gonna give you a perfect example. My third party risk management procedure, I think I've revised it 24 times, but that's
Nice.
okay. Right? Because at
True.
least I had something that I could iterate on and improve and make the process easier. So if
Mm,
you do that, you're gonna be fine. The other thing I would tell, cyber professionals, because it's so hard, because the stuff that we do takes so long, and
true.
sometimes, and this is something I struggle with. I am very good about putting time in my calendar to focus, like, on one particular task rather than
Mhm.
putting it off. I'll do that. I tell my team all the time that, "Hey, look, even if you have to go for, like, the 1 or 2 wins for the day, do it.
Mm,
Don't worry if you get the big stuff done, because if you get those 1 or 2 things, you're gonna get that, that what you're looking for, which is, I need to accomplish something, but you're not, like, totally annihilating your brain power, and
that's
then
true.
you'll actually start to feel better, right? You're like, "Hey, I've
Yeah.
done these 2 or 3 things, and now I can get to that bigger thing." So that's another thing I would recommend to people. It's hard
Mm.
sometimes in a SOC to do that because you're just, in it for so long doing all this
Yeah.
analysis and stuff, but don't forget to lift your head up every once in a while from a keyboard, breathe. It's pretty important.
No, I think that's a gold nugget, even for myself, Dave, and I appreciate that. And it's kind of a reassurance, like leaders like you, Dave, and my current boss right now to be like, you guys are there to support us, and we really appreciate that, and I appreciate that too as well. And I know folks are listening to this right now that are in the profession really appreciate that kind of reminder, if you will.
Of course, and now I'll give you this part because you said you love the
Yeah.
GRC part.
Oh yeah.
When I told my team, "Hey, look, okay, we're building this thing called Compliance High," and,
Yeah.
shout out to the senior leaders of my organization because they kinda
Nice.
knew, like, "Hey, this is gonna be something wildly different," right? And I came in and I
Mhm.
said, "All right, I dig your idea of FedRAMP High. Now let's add SOC 2, Type 2, and 3 ISO
Mm.
standards and PCI and high trust." We have, currently 8 compliance standards that we did
Nice.
just last year for a startup company 22 months out. My team
Nice.
probably looked at me like I was a little bit crazy, but when I could explain to them what it was gonna do for the business, they got it,
Mm.
right? And it has been a massive game changer, and for a GRC person, you probably have a ton of fun. It's actually a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
fun, right? If you get the right tools in that can
that's
help
true.
you automate some of the testing and stuff, I've had a blast.
Oh, that's
It's
awesome.
been the most fun I think I've had in my career.
That's awesome. I'll have to pick your brain one of these days later on down the road, Dave, about the GRC things and whatnot. I'm definitely going to do that. What does work life integration look like for someone in a high pressure CISO role?
I had this conversation literally the other day with one of my managers. I said, "You
Nice.
got to put okay. It's a couple things. You got to put sort of some guardrails around yourself, right? So I don't have notifications go off on my phone.
Mm.
I don't, because if I did, I'd constantly be on my phone, right?
Yeah.
But I check in. I'll check in, and everybody knows how to get a hold of me on my phone if it's urgent, right? But like at a certain time of the day, I can't have that barrage of notifications because you never can actually decompress, right?
That's
You
true. That's true.
and I also don't like after hours do just cyber stuff. Like I have other interest,
Mhm.
and I love, for instance, refinishing furniture.
Oh, awesome.
Last year I built a 25-foot by 15-foot by 17-foot high greenhouse for my wife.
Oh,
We
awesome.
have
That's
4.58
cool.
acres, and so I'll go out
Nice.
and I'll carve trails down to the river or just something where I
Nice.
can clear my mind. Because what I find is that then when I go back to my job, I'm really hyper focused on the
Mm.
performance that I'm gonna have throughout that day, right? Yeah, generally, I think it's important when you're talking about if you're constantly connected, like, it could be rough, and, like, for
Yeah.
SOC people, and I feel for SOC people, I was at US CERT, so it's a national CERT, or a national
Mm.
SOC. It's tough because, like, you work for hours to try to actually find some insight that means something. It's why I'm at Endosite. I want that tool in the hand of every SOC operator
Mm.
because when you can actually turn actions and insights in minutes versus hours, or you can get feedback on potential next step, that's wildly, incredibly helpful, right?
True.
The other thing I think of is, you got to take care of your mind,
Mm.
right?
That's a good one.
And so what I mean by that is don't try to control what's not yours.
Mm.
And I had this conversation at a CISO breakfast last week. I was in Charlotte with one of our advisors, and I said, "I don't try to own risk. I don't own risk, and I sleep better at night." Now, my job is to inform the business on risk, to give them information so they can make informed risk-based decisions, of course, right? But I don't
Mhm.
try to own it. So if you try to control things that aren't within your control, you're only going to grind your body down.
Mm.
The other thing I'm going to say is when I was in the military, I went to this academy when I got promoted to chief petty officer. And in the course of being in that, what I learned and the whole purpose of that course was to remember to take care of yourself. Number
Mm.
one, you don't take care of yourself, you're not there for anybody else. Right.
True.
And oh, by the way, let's not take this stuff so damn seriously. No one's
Yeah.
dying. I had a job where people were dying. You had a job that people were dying. Yes, you might
Mm.
lose money. Yes, it might be something embarrassing that will happen and you find yourself, having to explain it, but you're not dying. So no one's
True.
dying rather. So just you got to learn to kind of not try to control everything.
I like that. It's a good reminder, even for myself and those listening to their in the profession. They can like you mentioned. I like how you mentioned that really pinged my brain. Dave was, don't own the risk. Don't let it bury you. Don't let it bog you down. And it's tough, especially when you're going through the grind. And we love what we do for work, but I think reminder for myself and others, and also those that want to get into the field that I like how you step away, Dave, and you're working on carpentry and different other projects, right? And I think that's a good way to decompress. Whether it's for me, it's playing basketball and watching old basketball
Yeah.
films and whatnot. And so that kind of makes me decompress or spend time with my wife and just finding a way to like step away a little bit, have family time, have some friendship time, and hanging out with folks and just kind of get away from the tech world just a little bit.
Yeah, I'll say one last thing on that topic, and it's great that you're calling that out. I have blocked on Friday night time because every
Mm,
Friday I take my wife out. It's date night, and I don't sway away from
mm,
that. So, like, have those commitments. It's really
mm.
important. I get to socialize with people because I work from home, so I get to socialize with other people, and I get to spend time with my wife, and all that stuff is super important to do. So, yeah,
Big, huge gold nugget for sure, right there. If your career was a movie, what would the title be and who would play you?
don't do what I did. Likely. Um, who would play me? I want it to be somebody funny because, like, I really try not to take life so seriously anymore.
Uh,
Um, a comedian, I guess, because like
Nice.
it's funny when my IT manager first started, I said I took him to breakfast and I said, "Hey,
Uh,
we're going to do this compliance. We're going to do that compliance. It's going to be fun." And he thought, "You are out of your." He looked at me like, "You are crazy, right?" But I made it fun, right? And so yeah,
uh,
somebody that I think that would be funny, probably
awesome.
funnier than me.
No, that's awesome. It's such a good reminder, like you mentioned, Dave, before that. Take time. Don't be too serious about it. Have fun. And Dave, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I think you dropped a lot of gems for me personally as well, so as a reminder, and for those already in the field, but especially for those looking to get into IT, cyber infosec, and learning from your experience and what they can bring in. Also, folks from the military and law enforcement that want to swing over to the IT tech infosec side. Dave, for those that want to learn more about your book, maybe want to know more about Endosite, what you do there, and just want to get a hold of you, where can they find that information?
I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to
Awesome.
message me. I'm pretty good to respond. Sometimes you get lost in some of the sales asks, but I'm fairly good
Yeah.
at responding on LinkedIn, and happy to meet with people periodically, of course, because this is really important. Getting into the field, you almost feel like, how do I do it?
Yeah.
And sometimes, like for the folks coming out of college, my heart goes out to you because you're like, hey, I've got this degree and I've got these certifications.
Mm,
But my advice to you again is to go out, meet these folks, listen to their pain points. Maybe they'll give you an opportunity to do a free internship, and you're like, do I really want to work for free? It's a
mm,
referenceable experience. You're going to
yeah.
have somebody who's going to be willing to actually speak on the work that you did, and now you have something that you can put in your resume that is not just
Mm,
coursework. So it's actually really important. And I've seen it firsthand how it actually works. So yeah, reach
yeah.
out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll try to respond as fast as I can. But yeah, I wish everybody luck. I know it's kind of a little bit of a crazy time, but
Yeah.
what I would say is don't get discouraged.
Mm,
It's easy to get discouraged. Decide what it is you want to do and focus just on that. So if you want to be a SOC analyst,
mm,
only apply for SOC analyst. Have your messaging around SOC analyst, and how you feel you could come in with your analytical mind or whatever it is. But if you're trying to do 10 different jobs, it's harder for you to explain where your passion lies. So that's the last
mm.
piece of advice I think I would give anybody who's even in a job search today, because it is a little bit, I don't want to use the word wonky, but it's kind of wonky out there right now.
And also, guys, definitely, those that are working the field, or even those that want to get into the tech world, definitely check out Lean CISO. Coming from a GRC type, I have IT background, but coming into infosec in a GRC side, that's helped me a lot as far as like frameworks and compliance stuff, and definitely recommend Dave's book. Check it out. Go on Amazon, purchase it. You guys are not gonna regret it at all.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's very kind of
For
you.
sure,
And actually
for
check out
sure.
what we're doing at Andesite. I'm not trying to
Mm.
do a salesy pitch, but
No,
it's incredible, incredible work. What we're doing is actually helping SOC analysts derive value 50% quicker. It's about efficiencies.
nice.
It's about literally having that AI as a tool real time to be able to gain insights and actions so that you don't get in these rabbit holes and things, right? It's incredible. So like I am proud, proud, proud to be part of that company and been able to build it and work with the executive team and everybody in that company. So again, not sales pitchy, but if you're interested in security, you should be checking out what we're doing because it's really,
That's
really
awesome.
slick stuff.
No, I appreciate Dave on being on the podcast. You dropped a bunch of gold gems and gold nuggets on the not only for myself personally, but also for the folks listening to the podcast. Thanks. Appreciate the time.
It's been my absolute pleasure, Mike. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for listening. And if I can help, reach out.
This is episode number 30 with Dave Brown. He's a CISO and CIO of Endosite, founder of the Lean CISO LLC, and author of the one and only The Lean CISO. Definitely check that out, guys. Have a good one, guys. See ya.